Hi, everybody. Welcome to GW Center for Integrative Medicine podcast. We are going to be talking about mold and particularly mold testing today. So, my guest today is Gianni, and Gianni is a manager and a director of the Envirobiomics Labs. So, we're going to talk about all of what that means. Gianni has a master's in science, and particularly in environmental sciences with more than 30 years of experience. He widely published. He is going to talk to us about why we at CIM like to use envirobiomics. Particularly, this is a very brainy topic, very specific topic, because, of course, mold is a very sophisticated issue, and we'll hear from you, Gianni, more. So, by just a more specific introduction, mold testing is very complicated. Tell us, I guess let's just start out. What is mold testing? Why is it important? And what does your company do?
Yeah, hi. Well, pleasure to be here in your podcast. And like you said, yeah, I'm a director here with Envirobiomics, and we do mold testing. And why we do this is because there is a lot of medical problem associated with mold in homes, and especially in water damaged homes. And this been around for a long, long time. And people want to know what is in their home and how they're going to take care. So mostly being associated with toxins, mycotoxins are produced by mold. So that's kind of the background of this. What do we do here in envirobiomics? Yeah.
So there are all kinds of tests for mold. So patients can walk into Home Depot, buy a little kit for, I don't know, $50, go home and send a test. And we know that that's a totally useless, complete waste of effort.
Mm.
So, this whole topic of how do you test for mold in the house, we're not particularly talking about how you test a patient's. I'll say a few words later about it. We're talking about figuring out mold inside a house and what has to be done about it. So your company, I would say number one, I don't know about the world, definitely in the North America, to look into is there mold in the house? So how is your technology different from, I don't know, any other test that is out there?
Right. Yeah. I guess this is been around for a long time. So people initially what they did is put a plate
Mhm,
and take a sample and put this whatever mold they collect or put a plate actually in the site and wait for something to grow.
mhm,
Or they take the sample to the lab and put it in the plates, several different plates, and they grow. That's the classic, microbiology. It's been around for a long time.
mhm,
What we are very different, we don't do that. We take the sample with a Swiffer. Actually, what I mean, we is like somebody, we send a kid with instruction, and somebody there will take a sample in
mhm.
their home. And basically, what they do is a Swiffer or a vacuum, and they send sample back to the lab, and we test it here for DNA. So this technology is called PCR. It's a quantitative PCR.
Mhm.
It's a very well established. It's used everywhere in the industry, hospitals. So it's a very good tool, very well
So it's
documented.
way, way more sensitive, I
It's
think.
way more
Bigger.
sensitive and it give you species, mold species, which is very important because you're looking for what's there. Is this a Stachybotrys? Is this a Shatarum? This is a toxic mold?
Mhm,
Or do we have mold on just genus, just general?
mhm.
So we are able to identify species level.
So the petri dishes, in my understanding, there are two problems. I mean, you can miss things because stuff may just not grow, but you can also simply put the petri dish in a particular spot where it's not going to represent the rest of the house, right? So that's one of the biggest
Right,
concerns. Now, you said that you have a Swiffer and you have a vacuum. Can you tell us a little bit the difference between?
right, yeah. The vacuum was the very classic method for doing this. I don't know, since the 80s or 90s.
Hmm.
Um, because a lot of people have carpet and they just vacuum the carpet, so, in a certain area in the floor or living room or bedroom.
Hmm.
But now it's very unusual to have carpet, so everybody, the whole industry move into Swifers, which are little duster wipes that you collect electrostatically,
Hmm.
collect the dust. And it's very simple. Basically, you go around the home, 10 different areas if you're going to collect the whole house, and you wipe over anything above the knee, not in the floor, not in where you're walking,
Hmm.
like the furniture, the window sills, the door frames, and whatever you have in the walls. You just collect dust.
So obviously, if you collect a lot of surfaces, in contrast to putting a plate somewhere, your sensitivity goes way up because you're going to pick up all kinds of
Right,
things which otherwise plate.
right. You are collecting the whole many places in the home, so in living areas,
Hmm.
and you are most likely to find the problem that just putting one plate in one place. What most of the time people don't put one plate, they just collect several plates,
Hmm.
and they do several also other techniques that like called uh, biotapes, which they collect like a Scotch tape. They collect from the surface, and
Hmm.
they do 10 in a home, maybe, or I don't know, several. But those are always going to be just a genus. It's not going to be very good for species. Speciation is very important when you want to find out is this a toxic or not what kind of mold is.
Hmm.
Like aspergillus, you have many aspergillus, but some of them, some species are toxic, some are not. So some are good. Yeah.
So for listeners, I think our process looks like this. So we basically identify a problem first, and the way we do this when patient comes in, there's a cluster of symptoms, whether it's a headaches, fatigue, intestinal symptoms, joint pains, brain fog. So those are very, very common. So once we hear that, then we would assess the inflammatory markers. And we also do this test called VCS test, which is a visual contrast. Patients look at the screen and identify the contrast difference. So once we confirm that the blood test and VCS is looking in agreeable with what we call SIRS or chronic inflammatory response syndrome, the next step is find the source. So then we send the patient to your website. Of course, we're going to have a link in this video so everybody can take a look. And then patients order your test. So if the test comes back elevated, then we found that there's a mold in a house. So then the next step, we would then try to find a pretty decent actual inspector who will, based on your test, will say, okay, well, it's coming from the ceiling or it's coming from the bathroom or whatever. And then
Mm.
remediation starts. So that's the kind of, in just two words, the entire process. Previously, what we've observed when we would just send an inspector, the problem was often inspector would not find the problem right away. We see a lot of situations when patients will tell us, "Oh, I went to my landlord and they sent someone inside and they didn't find anything," and we're like, "Okay, right." Often the mold inspectors will look around, don't see anything growing, walk out and say there's nothing there. It's
Right.
just totally useless
Yeah.
inspection. So now we do it a lot more clear because it actually saves potentially a lot of money for patients, because if they go in and get an inspector first, inspector charges, let's say,
Right.
I don't know, $800 or 1,000, and they don't find anything, well, then you have a problem if the mold is still there. So I think the sensitivity and specificity of inspection picks up. I've always had this problem, Gianni. I don't know if you can answer this. Are we going towards a bit more specific situation where patients actually can say swift a area where they worry, get that positive and skip the inspector? Or do you think that's never going to happen?
Well, we don't do inspections. We are just a
Right.
lab. So I don't know how to answer that question. It's like we work with we have in the website many inspectors, many people that work in the area. Uh, I think the inspection is always going to be needed at some point because even if you find the source, you need the remediation, you need to take care. It's not just put in some whatever you want to try and paint over. It's not that simple.
Exactly.
So it's always going to be there, inspector, just for the remediation, also for finding the stuff. But if you're going to go the baseline, you want to know what's there. If it's something is there, is should I concern? I think you can just do yourself a Swiffer test on the living areas and get quite a good result. I mean, good information about what's going on.
Hmm.
You know, if you do one of these mold tests, it will tell you right away. Actually, I did it I did it myself, and I was surprised and found a lot of mold, and there was a lot of mold, and they have to remove it. And
Well,
there
the
was,
thing is,
yeah,
not a lot of people are really not too sensitive to this. So, like, you may have
right,
a big
yeah, yeah, yeah.
family and only one person in the family gets sick from the mold. Everybody else.
Exactly. That's another variable. Is not everybody gets sick with this, and some people are susceptible, like maybe 25% of
Right.
population, something like that. But yeah, mold the baseline, you can get a baseline yourself. Now, where it's coming from, you need help. How to get
So
rid of
that's
it? How
the
to get rid of it? You need help. Yes.
right. So that's the key. I just wanted you to say that because that's the most important message to all of the listeners who
Right. And
this.
I'll have to come back to the sensitivity you mentioned. It's very important. DNA testing is sensitive. All the tests are not sensitive. You're not going to see it. And you're going to have a false sense of security.
That's
And
right.
you're going to feel that, oh, I got this test of, microscope. And I think there's nothing. But those are traditional methods that are not sensitive enough for those people sensitive. You
Right.
need a DNA test. Yeah.
Right. And then when the remediation is done, we ask patients to repeat your test so then to make sure that it's clean. We actually have had many situations where
Right.
we would keep working with the patients, they wouldn't get better, and we're like, well, why are you not getting better? And then just to find out that remediation was not done correctly and there's still mold in the house.
Right. Yeah. It's
So rechecking.
that's a big issue. It's not simple like paint over and you're done. This stuff flies around and it start if there's water, find water start growing in other places, and it's the places are very hard to tell. Sometimes behind the walls, on the attics, on the crawl space, on the on the basements. And under the laminate, a lot of laminate grow mold, and
Under laminate.
under laminate, yeah,
Oh, wow.
under laminate. There's laminate that is installed maybe the wrong way with no ventilations,
Huh.
and they start growing like crazy there. Yeah,
And so
and the
so
whole
even
laminate.
even with limited amount of water, and then of course the mold can get
Oh
from
yeah,
under laminate above and
yeah,
start
yeah.
growing.
I saw it myself. Yeah, so I had to remove the whole thing,
Huh.
full of mold. Yeah.
And we traditionally hear that the laminate is safe because it doesn't allow water to go through. But
Hmm. I don't
that's
know. They
comes
are all kind of laminate. There are vinyls that they don't get any problem. There is all kind of laminate, but the laminates are they some of them they're very bad. They grow,
Mhm.
and there is the installation also. So you may find the mall is in the you walk around, you see beautiful, and the mall is hiding underneath. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Right. So that's why the test has to be so sensitive because you want to pick up everything.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
why you want to pick up everything.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about how the test is set up. And I don't think I will put the copy of any sample there, but listeners can go to your website and there is a more detailed explanation. But you provide this score. So you provide detailed analysis of each mold species, but then you give this total score. So let's talk a
Right.
little bit about that. So how do you formulate that score? Because if the house has a score, I don't know, let's say of 3, which would be pretty low, we would be happy with. But how do you come up with that score?
Well, the score was developed by the Environmental Protection Agency,
Hmm.
and what it is a list of 26 mo for ERMI. There is a test called ERMI, and then another test called HERSMI 2.
Hmm.
The ERMI is initial test is 36 different mold species, and you have 26 on water damage group, and you have another 10 on control normal indoor mold. They're served like a control, and the way you calculate is you get the logarithmic of each one, and then add it up all together is 26. And then you get group one, and then they do the same thing for the control group and group two. So group one minus group two, you get an Army score.
Hmm.
And having said that, uh, uh, we put in the report individually if it's normal levels or elevated levels. And many times the score might not be the best, no information to follow because let's say you have a lot of control mold,
Hmm.
normal mold inside the house because it's very humid place, and that can hide very bad mold because you are subtracting that to
Hmm.
the bad mold. So your control mold may be a problem there. So it's better to look individually each one of the species,
Hmm.
and especially group one, which are the toxic mold. Yeah,
And you give that information in great detail, and then there's description
right.
underneath
Yeah.
there, so that
Yeah, it's all color coded, and you can see if it's red, you are in the highest range, and if it's green, you are in the lowest range. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Good. Yeah. So if listeners are interested, what they would need to do is if they want to buy your test, they'll go to your website, they'll buy a test. And then when the report comes in, then you get this beautiful printout. If the listeners have questions, can they reach out to you guys and talk to
Right. Yeah, they do. We have a basic information since to be more specific, we have to be there at the site and know more details. So what we do is like 10 minute, 5, 10 minute consultations on the report, and
someone?
it'll help people to understand the report. Yeah.
And then you have a list of the mold inspectors if something else needs to be done. Then
Exactly. Yeah, we have a list of them that we know them for a long time because we work with them. We meet in conference. We have a good relation, so we post them. But they're independent. We don't have any other
Mhm.
conflict of interest there.
Well, thank you, Gianni. This was very, very good. We are happy to report that now at this point we have a bit more of a standard relationship with you guys. We're going to have like a special access code on our website because we've done so many tests now that we've realized we need to have a bit more clear process. And I think part of it is just the fact that our program has become so large in the last couple of years since Dr. Jacob joined us that we really barely keeping up with anything. But again, for those who are listening, if you're not our patient and you're interested in this topic, I think Envirobiomics is definitely the number one company you should use their samples. And if you have any questions, you can reach them out and check it out. I'll make sure that all the links are posted in the description of this video. If you have any particular comments, please provide so and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you back covering all things integrative medicine, health and wellness, and stay safe, friends. Thank you, Gianni, so much for coming and talking.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Goodbye.